Um, in society today, we consider um, ourselves to be more advanced than societies that preceded us. We consider ourselves to have advanced in terms of technology. We consider ourselves to have understood the universe in which we live in far much better than those who came before us. However, it seems that despite the fact that we have advanced, there are certain things that we seem to not understand. There are certain mistakes that I think we seem to be making. One of the mistakes, or one of the areas that I think we are not progressing as humanity, is in the area of family. I think in this century that, or in this age that we so-called information age, we've got information, access to information on almost every topic. Everything can be discussed scientifically through certain uh, research. Um, People argue on what is right, what is wrong, what is the best way to do it. But it still seems that at the end of the day, people are failing rather than succeeding, despite the fact that they have access, they seem to be quite knowledgeable. It is, if you get into YouTube right now, I'm sure you wouldn't miss numerous videos talking how best you should um, relate in a marriage, when you're supposed to marry, who you're supposed to marry, what are the tricks of getting the best spouse. And all this knowledge comes from various sources. Some of it is from religion, for those who practice certain religions. Some of it is from what people think, what people think. And people seem so sophisticated when they discuss these topics. You can think that they really have the answer if you see the manner in which they express themselves, usually with a lot of bravado. They exude confidence. the manner in which they express themselves. But ironically, still marriages seem to be failing rather than succeeding. So, what are we missing? It seems that we are claiming to be very knowledgeable, yet we aren't. In the multitude of words that we speak, perhaps there isn't any wisdom. I think that there is a mistake that we are making in as far as the laws of nature are concerned. The laws of nature, we think as humans mostly that it attributes to physical things like the sun, the moon, plants, trees, human body, biology, and all that. But I tend to think that the laws of nature are also social in nature. Such the laws that control society, social interaction, or sociology are also natural laws. And as the rule of natural laws goes, they cannot be contravened. The human being cannot go against them. If the human being goes against them, then the society or the human race must face some negative impacts out of contravening those laws. I will begin by uh, the age of marriage. I think that the age of human beings like getting married is something that shouldn't be rationalized or thought about so much the way the modern man thinks. The people argue what's the when should we marry? When should we have children? I think just as animals in the lower hierarchy act, we humans, being animals, we do have similar instincts. Such those instincts also control how we act in the social realm. And if we go against them, then we see certain repercussions. For example, when a male animal has reached stages of maturity or puberty, the next thing that naturally comes is mating. But for human beings, when they reach stages of puberty and maturity, because there are other things that they've introduced into their social life, they cannot incorporate what has they have invented, the social structures they've invented with what is natural. So I tend to think that people are ready to mate and therefore marry at pretty young age if they were to go by the laws of nature. But then things like school, the need to acquire perhaps more wealth, over scrutinizing who somebody is supposed to marry in terms of the long lists that people have of the characteristics of what they think should be their spouse, then hinders when they're supposed to get married, among other factors, and that puts them potentially in a path that they might lose direction or maybe plunge into a situation of confusion. So, for example, you want to acquire PhD, might be a crisis to balance between how do I concentrate on my books and meet a girl and marry. And when you was trying to pursue that higher degree, you might not be making money. So if you're not careful, you might just discover that at one point you you're too late. You're too late. And you start feeling a little bit anxious, or perhaps nature can act against you because you haven't obeyed it. If you're a woman, you might not be able to carry a child anymore. If you're a man, the number of suitors might have decreased because perhaps some younger ones have been married. Perhaps the age gap is now too big, and you wonder whether you can marry a girl who is way, way younger than you. Again, all these thoughts are crossing your mind because we have become so sophisticated in our thoughts. So you reason, you overthinking, over analyzing. Another thing that delaying marriage in terms of taking too long before you get married. Another thing that tends to happen is that you can find yourself in a situation where, or many of us in contemporary society, despite the fact that we delay marriage, we get involved in multiple sexual relationships before we finally get married. Now, I don't know how it works that you are used to having multiple sexual relationships with different people, and then you suddenly change, and now you stop that habit completely, and there are no risks of you going back to your male previous habit. What miracle happens that suddenly transforms you into this new person that will not remember perhaps the good old days that you were having multiple sexual relationships? Wouldn't you resort to looking for another sexual partner for a day or two, since you are used to that habit before, especially in situations where maybe with your now lifetime partner, things are not going well between you. Maybe you've disagreed, maybe the marriage has become boring, or whatever happens that makes you feel uncomfortable in that marriage, you do not remember. But again, if you've fallen so much into that habit, how easy is it for you again to just switch and change forever? I tend to think that people look for other reasons. For example, why we have high divorce rates or high cases of adultery. But I think one of the reasons would be before you got married, you were never used to having sexual relationship with just one person. Again, people boldly talk about how sex should be, the romance is written in books, watched in videos and everything. What if you never had sexual relationship with anybody before you got married? Will you be able to compare how this person is better than the other? I mean, what you have would have been your best, nothing else. But because we have somehow created circumstances that can no longer allow a situation whereby people get into marriage as virgins, as many societies tell us from their histories and traditions that are practiced only with a few societies in today's world, that only marriage was done between mostly two people who are virgins. Unfortunately, that no longer happens, first of all, because there's a long period between when people get into puberty and when they get married. A very long period. And sexual attraction is not something that is thought about. Human beings don't create it, they didn't manufacture it. It comes naturally without anybody being taught. So it's your body talking, telling you that it is time. It is time to mate. But as an intelligent modern man, you go against that. And then that has, of course, has its own repercussions. And I think the long wait before marriage, um, and also the materialist, the consumerism culture also opened up the gates for what we now call a lot of sexually explicit language, music, videos, and everything, parties, and all that, that then encourage too much sexual activity before, even during marriage. And that, I think, kind of confuses the mind of most of us. Because I think that what you call happiness today, that people think that they are going to pursue in marriage, and how it is defined is maybe erroneous in nature, because it's not what was designed. Marriage was designed so that the species, human species, can propagate itself, just like other living beings, including plants. Happiness um, was to come from other things. Just like animals can be happy if they have food, shelter, they are free of disease, they're not fighting, they're healthy, well fed by whoever is keeping them. The same way, those are the fundamental things that a human being needs to be happy, not the emphasis that is put on how people are supposed to be in a sexual relationship, how many times, how, which angles, how frequent, all that. That cannot be the main thing, because if it was the main thing, if it was the main thing, then I think this society that we live in today is way advanced when it comes to that. They know about that, they talk more about it. There are even people who have PhDs in that, but they are able to solve the pandemic. And it doesn't seem as if they're going to solve it anyway, from the look of things. So maybe humanity will have to rethink about the relationship that people are having in the family unit, because going against nature has severely affected the modern world. It's not only affected the modern world in terms of how the relationship, whether people are able to coexist peacefully and for a long time in marriage, but it has also led into population crisis, especially in countries in the West that have practiced um, the modern ways of marriage for a longer time, because of the two factors of people maybe taking longer to get married, and also um, having multiple sexual relationship before marriage, focusing too much on the aspect of sex and consumerism society, on consumerism lifestyle. The sizes of the of families have tremendously reduced, and some countries have to rely on importing labor just so that they can stay afloat. Otherwise, if they were unable to import labor, they would be in a crisis. They would simply fail. The economies would go down rapidly. Luckily, there are still some countries in the world that have relatively big populations or higher birth rates, but their populations are also dwindling. They're day by day, especially, or their populations are expected to dwindle in the distant future or in the near future, maybe, because their birth rates are reducing. So, what will happen if the countries that are balancing are able to cater for the shortage of labor are also in a population crisis? What will happen? I think another thing that is affecting the marriages today is the aspect of love. I think love is wrongfully defined in the modern society. Love is being made into some kind of a show. Hugging me, kissing me, making me laugh, buying for me nice or gifts. Well, these things are important, but they're not fundamental. Things that are fundamental are acts of kindness, genuine help when somebody needs it, treating somebody respectfully. But now, in the modern society, people have to put up a show. For example, opening for a lady a door is not necessarily an act of being a gentleman. She has hands, she can actually open that door. It doesn't mean that somebody is a good person or is good towards a lady just because she opened the door. Those are, if that was the case, that is something that means anything worthwhile, then these door opening men will really be able to keep their marriages, but they can't, because those are just fallacious human creations that are hollow and have no substance. If surprising somebody in their parties, in a lavish party, meant anything, then such things could really keep marriages. But they don't. They really don't. I don't think they do. Although some people say they do, but I doubt. Because if they did, then the statistics of broken marriages would have been way lower. But they aren't, despite us having these dramatic acts. It's proposing where you're kneeling down in a magnificent marriage proposal where you spend colossal amounts of money. What will matter is how long you'll be able to endure, where when you strip all the glamour, where you're supposed to now relate with the next person as a fellow human being who needs your companionship, help, whether you'll be able to provide that. I think we need to be simple. We are losing simplicity, and this is where the answer is: being simple. The glamours of the modern society, the multitude of words, of how many things we want that appear utopic. Men want have too much specifications of what they require of a woman. A woman has too many specifications of what they require of a man. That is so hard to find those specifications in one man. It's very difficult to find those many specifications they want in a woman. Those specifications might exist in a television, in a telenovela, but they do not exist in reality. They might exist on Instagram because those are choreographed pictures, images. But what you see in Instagram or in telenovelas are half the story, or they're simply choreographed stories. So, going back to the laws of nature, respecting the fact that even human interaction is governed by laws of nature. can help us as humanity preserve the family and live a happier life that we so wish in this society. We wish that after being able to acquire affluence by that affluence that previous societies could not, by having vehicles, materials, better water, better roads, that we are also able to have good relationships, especially happy families. But it seems that is eluding us. I think for us to get both good relationship, enjoy the fun of the modern society, then we need to rethink and go back to a little bit to the old ways, to the basics, to simplicity. Thank you.